Alright, this next part we're going to talk about is now the next step in factoring. We've gone through finding common factors and pulling them out. We've gone through a difference of two squares. We've gone through trinomial squares. And now we're getting to the point now where you've checked through all of these and you found now that you still have a trinomial, but it's none of those. So what do? It's not a perfect square. So you have to move on and kind of just figure out what to do. Okay, so we're going to look at, let's start first with an example like this. Well, in your notes it has, we're talking about factoring a trinomial, and it shows you x squared plus bx plus c. Okay, and they're talking about c. C is the constant. Okay, so you remember a constant is, it's a number. Okay, it's a number that doesn't change. That's why they call it constant. It's just it's a number. It doesn't have a variable attached to it. Okay. Well, what they're talking about here and what we're going to start off with is when the constant is positive. Okay, so we're focused on a positive constant. Okay, and it says is greater than 0, which means positive, right? So in order to have a constant that's positive, one of two things can happen, right? The two things that multiply to be it can either be both positive or both negative. Okay. Now, when you're doing that, basically what happens is if they're both positive or they're both negative. Okay. Let's take an example because this might get a little confusing if I keep trying to just explain. So what if I had like x plus 3 and x plus 2? Okay. So now, if we were to multiply these together, you do the first, right? X times x, and that's going to give you x squared. And that right there is the very beginning step. So you should right away know, if you look at the first term when we go to factor, okay, if you look at the first term, your x squared there, that just means that the first term in both of your factors are going to be x, okay, because x times x is x squared. So that helps very easily, right? Now, let's keep multiplying here. So if you do now x times 2x, you get plus 2x. And then if you do, the next is the inner, right? So 3 times x is going to give you plus 3x. And then 3 times 2 is going to give you plus 6. Okay, so now a couple things you can look at right away. Okay, first of all, we talked about that x squared. Okay, to get the first term in our answer, you multiply the very first one, okay, times the very first one. Okay, so you multiply the first two together, you get the very first term. Now, if you want to get the last term, okay, so this last term here, what did we do? We multiplied the last term in our factors times the last term. Okay, so the last term times the last term is going to equal the last term in your answer. Okay, so that's the beginning part. You need to figure out what are two numbers that multiply to be the last term. Okay, now let's look at our final answer here. We got x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay, so the first term in there multiplies to be the first term, and then the last term in each of the factors multiplies to be the last term. Now here's the trick. Okay, what you have to do is you have to find how does the numbers that multiply to be the last term add up. Okay, notice how we got 2x plus 3x. If you add those two together, it's 5x, right? So if you look at the factors of the last term, let's see if I can move this up a little bit. There we go. It got a little messy, but that's okay. So what you're looking at when we're going backwards, you're looking for two factors that multiply to be the last term. So in 6's case, we have 2 times 3, or we have 1 times 6, right? So they have to multiply to be the last term, but when you add them together, they add up to be the middle term. So 1 plus 6 is going to be 7, so that won't work, but 2 plus 3 equals 5. So this is the set that we're going to use, the 2 and the 3. Now you put in your first, so the x is going to go in first. We know that we want a positive there and a positive there, so we're going to use positive signs for both of those and just put in the 2 and the 3. Okay, so that's the trick to it. You want to look at what's going to multiply to be the last term and then add up to be the middle term whenever you have the last term positive. Okay, so let's flip over to page 9 in our notes. And right at the top, I'm going to go to a new page here. Alright, right at the top, they give you x squared plus 5x plus 6. What are the chances of that? Maybe I just saw this in my head or something. I don't know. Right at the top, this is the example I just gave you, right? Okay, so here's the trick. They have to multiply to be the last term. So multiply to be 6. So the factors of 6. You got 2 and 3 and 1 and 6. Okay, but they add up to be the middle term. So this one equals 5, this one equals 7. So what do? You put your two parentheses like your factors. Your first term, because it's only x, you got x, and then we're just going to put in plus 2 and plus 3. Okay, now they don't have another example there for you, but I'm going to go ahead and put another one in here for you. Let me think of one really quick. Let's do x squared plus, let's see, how about 8x plus 15. Okay, x squared plus 8x plus 15. Now this should be pretty simple because really there's only two ways you can multiply to be 15. Now if you want to start right away, if you look at your first term, right, it's x squared. So you know right away that the first two should be x's because x times x is going to give you x squared. Okay, now the last two have to multiply to be 15. So you think about 15, you have 1 times 15 and you have 3 times 5, right? Okay, well now the trick is which of those two is going to add up to be 8? Okay, well 1 and 15 is 16, 3 plus 5 is 8. So there's your answer. Okay, now it's got to be positive. Okay, so it's either your terms will either be positives or both be negatives, right? Because you want to multiply to be a positive number. Now, if I put in both negatives, though, that would give us negative 8, and that wouldn't work. So we want to put in both positives, and then you got 3 and 5. And to check your work, you would just multiply that back out, and that would give you the correct answer. Okay. See if you can try these a shot. Hopefully that kind of makes a little bit of sense to you. If not, just kind of keep going with the video. If you can, pause it for a second, give those two a shot that are on that page, and then come on back. Okay, so let's take a look at these really quick. So let's put our parentheses down below because we know it's going to be two binomials. Okay, and we also know that x squared is first, so it's going to be x and x in the beginning. And we can actually even put that for the next one if we wanted to, the x and the x in the beginning. Okay, now we know that it's going to multiply to be a positive, so our two terms are either going to be positive or negative, right? Okay, both positive or both negative. Now we want it to add up to be the middle, which is going to be positive, so that means that both of our answers are going to be positive. Okay, now let's look at the factors of 12. You have 1 times 12, you have 2 times 6, and you have 3 times 4. Okay, now since they're both the same sign, you're going to add them together. So 1 times 12 is 13, 2 times 6 is 8, 2 plus 6 is 8, and 3 plus 4 is 7. So the only one that can be correct is this bottom one because it adds up to be 7. So you have 3 and 4. There you go. That's your answer. Okay, and if you were to multiply that back out, okay, you get x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12, and you put those two together, you get 7x plus 12. And there you go, we got it. Okay, so we did it right. So x plus 3, x plus 4. Alright, so let's look at the factors of 36 now. So we have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and 6 and 6. Okay, well 1 plus 36 is 37, 2 plus 18 is 20. 3 times 12 is 15. 3 plus 12, sorry. 4 plus 9 is 13. And 6 plus 6 is 12. So we need it to be 13. So it's going to be this one right here. 4, positive 4, and a positive 9. Alright, so hopefully you guys understood that part. Hopefully it's making more sense after seeing a few of them. Okay, we'll continue to do some more. The next part that we're going to move on to is basically the exact same thing, except for in this case what you're doing is now your middle term is going to be negative. Okay, so let me keep moving. Alright, so the next one, the middle term is negative. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 12. Okay, and now it works exactly the same way. We still have our binomials as our factors, so x and x is going to be at the front. Now here's the only difference. Okay, it still has to multiply to be positive 12. So you got 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4, right? Okay, but here's the trick. Your answers, when you add them, you need this to be negative 8. Okay, well, multiplying to be positive, you can either have 2 positives or you can have 2 negatives, right? Because negative times negative is a positive. Well, here's where you need that. Okay, so if we did negative 1 plus negative 12, you get negative 13, right? And you do negative 2 plus negative 6, you end up with negative 8. And negative 3 plus negative 4 will give you negative 7. Okay, so when you see the negative in the middle, okay, and a positive at the end, the only difference that you're going to do is that your answers, when you put them in, are both going to be negatives. Okay, and then we're looking for 8 here, so that's going to be our answer. So we're going to have negative 2 and negative 6. Okay, and that way when you multiply it back together, right, so we'll multiply this back together, you get x squared minus 6x minus 2x, and then plus, because negative 2 times negative 6 is positive, plus 12, you get x squared minus 8x plus 12. Okay, so there's the only difference between the two steps, okay, is that negative in the middle. If it's positive in the middle, you're going to put both positives. If it's negative in the middle, you're going to put both negatives, okay, as long as you have the positive on the end. Okay, we're moving on to page 10 now. Okay, and that was the top part was the end of that problem. Let's try one more before we move you into the try these. You might just need to add this into your notes. Oh, I'm going to go to a blank page there. Alright, now how about we do x squared minus 10x plus 24. Okay, so let's think about what's going to fill in right away. Okay, we know our x is going to go up front. Okay, we need a positive when we multiply, but we need a negative when we add. So that will tell us that we're going to have 2 negative numbers. Okay, now factors of 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. Okay, now remember they're both going to be negatives here because we want them to add up to be a negative number. Okay, and so we have over here we have negative 25, here we have negative 14, negative 11, and negative 10. Okay, well we're looking for negative 10 there, so we're going to use these ones down here at the bottom. So we got x minus 4, x minus 6. Okay, because 6 times 4 multiplies together. Negative 4 times negative 6 multiplies to be 24. You add them together, it makes negative 10. Alright, now hopefully you got a little hold on this, so go ahead and give those a shot, try these, and then come on back. Okay, so let's take a look at your try these. So we know they're going to start with x's, and we also know that they're going to multiply to be positive but add up to be negative, so we need 2 negatives. Okay, now factors of 15, you got 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. So, and they're going to be negatives, so we have negative 16 or we have negative 8. So 3 and 5 it is, so negative 3, negative 5. Alright, Okay, next one, same thing, right? We know our x's. We know they're both going to be negatives. So factors of 20, we have 1 and 20. We have 2, -2 and -10. We have -4 times -5. Okay, if you add those together, you get -21, -12, and -9. So we got -4 and -5. Okay, and our last one, okay, if we put in our x's, we put in our negatives, got 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, and they're all negatives again. So we got -13, -12, -7. So the last one is going to do it. Alright, so we're hopefully catching the hang of this. As we continue working down page 10, okay, we're trying to make it a little bit more complicated for you. Not a whole lot, okay, but let's keep going on. Alright, so at the top of, the middle of page 10, you have the problem a squared plus 7ab plus 10b squared. Now, I don't want this to freak you out, okay, so just relax. Now, here's the thing you need to know, and this is it looks a little scary in the beginning, but it really isn't scary. Okay, we know that the first two need to multiply to be a, right? Okay, well, looking at this, you also know, okay, that the last two need to multiply to be b squared. So we're going to just put b in the end. Okay, that's the only difference. Now you can just forget about the variables and focus on the numbers. Okay, look at your signs. We have two positives, so that means that both of these are going to be pluses, right? They're both going to be positives. Now, what makes 10? 1 times 10, 2 times 5. When you add them together, you get 11, and here you get 7. So it's 2 and 5. Okay. Right now, if you notice, I'm just kind of throwing the numbers in. Eventually, you'll have to really decide where you want to put numbers. But for right now, we're just getting you in the hang of finding the right combinations and putting them together. Okay. That's the only difference. Okay, so don't freak out about these b's being at the end or these different letters or whatever it is. Okay, you just stick the one letter at the beginning, the other letter at the end, and then focus on the numbers. Okay, so now you have some try these down here. Give those a shot and then come on back. Okay, so let's take a look at the try these really quick. So the first one, m squared plus 8mn plus 15n squared. Okay, well, we know the first two need to multiply to be m. We know the last two need to multiply to be n. And we know that they're both positives, so I'm going to go ahead and put positives in there, because positive times positive is a positive, and then you add them together, you get a positive. So now, factors of 15. You got 1 and 15, 3 and 5. So which of those two add up to be 8? That would be 3 and 5, right? So you put 3, you put 5. And you're done. Okay, so don't freak out about the extra letter. Alright, we got a squared plus 5ab plus 6b squared. We know a at the beginning, we know b at the end, and we have both positives, so we're going to put pluses in there. And now factors of 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 3, okay, equals 7, equals, whoop, doesn't both equal 7? That was kind of bad, I'm going to erase that, sorry. Equals 7 equals 5, so we're going to use 2 and 3. Okay, and finally the last one, got p at the beginning, q at the end, both positives, so factors of 8, 1 and 8, 2 and 4. So this equals 9 and this equals 6, so we're going to use 2 and 4. Alright, that last one was at the top of 11 as well. Alright, so that's enough for this video. Go ahead and give those a shot, see how they do for you, and then I'll continue on with another video about when the constant is going to be negative instead, so we'll talk about that in a minute.